Right, 6:04 in your line.
Call the Monday, October 25th, 2021 meeting of the County Council Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting to order at 6:04. Councilmember Mark Davies. Here. Councilmember Scott Harrington. Here. Councilmember John Ross. Here. Is there any additions, subtractions, or corrections needed to the minutes that we provided?
None from me.
Hearing none, we'll accept them as provided. On to topic A. I see no representatives of Springbrook.
They're on
No, I'm
3
Oh, sorry. Hi, Seth.
Hey, everybody.
So we're going to do a remote presentation.
Hi, guys. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Sure.
Yeah, Len, if I may, can I ask City Attorney Murphy just to give just a brief overview of the current ownership status of the property, and kind of set a backdrop for the symbol at the Springbrook Lane.
David, before you start, you should have an opportunity to communicate with the Springbrook representatives.
We had a telephone conference, a Zoom conference actually, last week.
Okay, so they have this document.
I don't know if they have it. Do you guys, you can't, I don't know if you can see me. Do you ever, and you or Ms. Levy ever have a copy of the actual deed to the parcel?
You're asking us if we have a copy of the deed?
Yeah.
Yes.
When Poniano was doing its urban renewal back in the late 70s, one of the parcels that they took was what was called the Ford Block. Then currently includes Key Bank and the other, from Key Bank up through the walkway entrance. When it was sold, we were obviously building the parking garage. And so when the Ford Block itself was sold originally to an entity called Citizens Development of Oneonta, which then eventually sold to Scarborough Realty, which then, have you guys bought it yet? Springbrook first, okay. It's currently owned by Scarborough, yes? Yeah.
Yes.
Currently owned by Scarborough. City deeded it. If you look down at the bottom of the deed there, it shows what the city retained. So it retained the portion of the first floor, which is the discretion of the party. The first part, that was us, that was our original. As is required to construct an arcade running the entire length of the building, together with all the space required to construct an interior stairway and or elevator to the rear of the building, enough of the arcade together with sufficient space for suitable walkway from the existing parking structure, said stairway and or elevator. So we retained that, and we have retained it until this day. The current plan would be, and the city obviously has maintained it and heated it. You're all familiar with that. You've been through it 1,000 times. The current plan is when Springbrook puts in an elevator, that we would deed the entire property to them. We retain an easement, permanent easement, for the city to use the access way for the public to get from Main Street to the parking garage. And we would retain the use of the stairway in the back, and also retain the right to use the elevator for ADA compliance. So someone can come to the city and come in and get in the elevator, go down the elevator, come out the Water Street level into the parking garage. So the other thing that we have in there is that on the main floor, set back, we have a small shop area that's been used for signs and maintenance equipment and snow removal equipment for the winter time for that area down there where we remove snow. So the proposal is to share the cost of maintenance for the walkway and share utilities for the walkway and share maintenance costs for the elevator. What that dollar amount is, and what proportion it is why we're kind of here today. Springbrook had one opinion as to what was appropriate. I was not about to bind the city to a particular percentage.
Mhm.
So, but they suggested that they come in front of the committee and make a proposal. Also, in the meantime, from that time on, we started looking at what our maintenance costs were, what an elevator maintenance cost would be, what our cleaning expenses are, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So we have some kind of real numbers to kick around so you get a sense of what we're talking about. Although the easement is going to be permanent, municipalities are restricted, as I've said some 2 million times. We can't extend contracts for more than 5 years. So this maintenance contract would be for a period of 5 years and subject to renegotiation by all parties within 5 years.
Right.
That's kind of where I am. And
So Seth, real quick, would you be objecting to putting a separate meter just for those electrical breakers that we need to utilize our HVAC and lights for that pass through?
No, not at all. We, can you guys hear me okay?
yeah, we're good.
No, we wouldn't be opposed to that. And I think the approach here, first of all, thank you for letting us come before you briefly. The purpose of this, as Attorney Merzick said, was to clarify this easement, which is required for us for our loans and our financing before we go, before that moves forward, which we're hoping to close on in December. So appreciate that you getting us on the agenda so quickly. After our conversation with Greg and Ginny and Attorney Merzick and Attorney Levy from Hinman, Howard and Cattell, we went back and did some cost analysis, as we were talking about a second ago, and got some real costs from Greg and Ginny. And I'm hoping Michelle could share that screen. If you would you mind taking a look at those and we can just point out some scenarios here? Would that be okay?
Yes, that's fine.
So what you see are actuals that Greg and Ginny were able to pull from cost data that they had for the last 3 years. And what this is essentially an averaged out cost of what that space costs you. And that is in the blue box. It costs, with all those categories, the city about $15,000 a year to heat, clean, et cetera, repair that space. What we're saying is, because of the new arrangement that we're happy to be going into with the city with that shared elevator, we would like to propose that we split the repairs and the maintenance and the cleaning. Actually, we take the lead in it, but that we share the costs. So if we're going on a baseline of what you currently spend, which is $15,364, we're proposing to add the elevator maintenance contract, which is about $3,500. We have quotes on that, and that's also consistent with what you pay for your other city elevators for a year of maintenance. That would bring the total cost to $18,904.83 if you added that all the costs at 100% of what they are today. What we're proposing is that we split them with you, so we each come in at, let's say, $10,000. And what that does is, it looks to me like that saves the city about $5,000 a year. And it also makes it so Springbrook bears responsibility, I think, for securing the cleaning, securing the repairs, calling the elevator repair people, coordinating all of the things that are on that for that 5-year period of time. And what I like about the 5-year period is that we could say at the end of that we take a look at how that worked and what happened and how everybody felt it went for both parties. Like I said, those numbers were sent to us on Friday from Greg and Ginny. We had another conversation with them to get our arms around it. So I think this is a win-win for both of us. I'm not anticipating a lot of elevator repair bills because it'll be brand new. But you know, we think it's smart to have a contract that does handle all or cover all the minor to moderate repairs and equipment needed if there is an issue with the elevator. The only last thing that Greg, that we talked about was we would still like the city to maintain the police security cameras for the space because you do now, and I know you're planning an upgrade now, which we'd like to coordinate in with the new build in the lobby. And I think it's important just because there will be I think there'll be lots of people in and out that aren't necessarily coming into, you know, the apartments. And I think it's important, you're going to have visibility on Water Street and on Main Street, but there would be if we take it, there would be a blank space for the police in between and that breezeway, which is really a public space that they wouldn't be able to see as readily as they do now. So I think that's why there's a TBD in there. And probably Greg can explain more. I don't know if that was too brief or if you'd like me to go into anything in more detail than that, or if anybody has any comment, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
So Seth, on the proposed share elevator maintenance agreement, did I misunderstand you? Is that a 50-50 split or did you take a 70-30 lead on that?
That's a full cost in at 3,500, and then we're adding that into the total of what you spend now, coming for a total gross value of 18,900, and then we're just cutting it in half. So it basically is we're 50-50 with the city on the elevator maintenance contract.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're assuming half of the other stuff that you currently are already in at 100%, the net of it all is you come out with a savings.
Right. You and I had talked during the walkthrough of changing out the HVAC from the rooftop down to maybe an air source so that we would stay a little bit more green. Has that been within the talks?
Yeah, it has. They're working on that now. We did point that out, and the architects took that away as an action. So yes.
So overall, we could save money. I would say substantially we should be saving money on the cost of not only maintenance, but just to run the HVAC in that small space.
Yes.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention is that they had Springbrook had talked about providing maintenance through a contract with some of their clients. Because again, I don't know that we want to be in a situation where where the city is providing employees to do the maintenance on a 50-50 basis. And I don't know where we were on that. Is that still something that you're planning on doing?
We would love to engage more of our program participants in the cleaning. We see it as job opportunities. That's why I think we're really excited to take the lead in that. And if, you know, those are great opportunities for our folks to do. So yes, we would definitely be happy to take the lead and secure the cleaning resources necessary there.
So by doing that stuff, do you think you can lower the cost down from $6,000 a year?
You know, I don't know. We just took that as, I would hope so. We just took that as a starting point. You know, depending on what the city wants to do, we could talk about a range or a not to exceed that is around that 10,000 all in level that, you know, protects us in you, that still would give you that savings. You know, we'd be happy to look at that. But yeah, I'm going to guess that one of our participants, you know, I don't know the actual wage that someone would be paid based on experience and what they've done in the past. I mean, it wouldn't be probably a trial site for us. It would be somebody that would go in with a job coach that would be very capable of delivering the service we wanted under the direction of somebody that knows what we want. I'm not sure that it would be 100% Springbrook participants. We may have some of our facilities person do certain aspects of that. That we haven't really hammered that out yet, but I do know one of our overall visions for the building and the property around is to utilize integrated workforce to the extent that we can.
Good, that sounds good. Ginny, would there be an objection to having that range? Because I like that idea of having an operating range.
No, I would not object, and I would think that the agreement between the city and Springbrook would be based on actual costs and not estimated costs, and we would just do a reconciliation.
Yeah.
Between the costs. Do you agree?
Yeah, we could absolutely, we're used to working that way. It's a lot of how our rate methodology works. So we would isolate the costs for that location specifically in the shared space and just run a ledger for it, similar to how you did to get your costs.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that gives great transparency for everybody involved into the relationship. Agree?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. We just have to, basing on actual costs, we'll just have to get into the details and nail down the exact scope of work that, that is entailed, the general categories that they've shown there. Probably go up and down and be more specific, so everyone knows what's included and what might not be. So, yeah.
Okay. Seth, were you able to get a better price on the elevator than 330?
We don't know yet. Our project just went out to bid, as a matter of fact, today. The architect sent the whole bid package. I know they bid what kind of elevator they bid, and I think that was based on, trying to get good price. We did include as many local vendors as we could on a general contractor side that would and could bid on the project. So we really we'd love it if it were somebody local that could do it, Tonyana. But the bids will come in. I'm hoping because if, we see some shrinkage there. I mean, I don't know. Materials are all over the place, as you all know now, with lead times and availability. We thought it would get better, but with all the delays in freight, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing that's gonna have to be finally determined, and I don't know again whether it's been solidified outside of my contact, but we did want to retain some portion of the Water Street area over and above where the footprint of the elevator. And Greg said that he had provided you with the square footage number, and I don't know if that had been discussed with Lillian or internally as to whether you were acceptable with us maintaining that square footage on the Water Street floor.
Yeah, Greg has been, he's been great with getting us what the needs are. They were still trying to work out a floor plan for that space that could accommodate a trash chute for the building, because trash is going to have to come in and out of a similar space. So there's a little fluidity with that at the moment, with the exact space. We have to talk about those needs in a little more, I have to get back with the architects to talk more in detail about that. But we know what you all need there.
I just want the committee to be aware that that's one other issue that needs to be finalized, that's all.
Yeah, it does.
Basically, the layout's gonna stay the same, right? Stairs are gonna remain in the same
Yeah,
place.
this is-
Elevator shaft is where it is.
This is if you go into the
Water Street floor. all the
And
way
instead
up.
of turning right, you go straight ahead. Right now, there's plywood doors, and you open it up and we're using it all the way back. There's the footprint of where the elevator is gonna come down, and if they're looking for a chute, we also need some space for storage.
Is that for the?
Yeah, we can reduce the amount of space that we would need, assuming sprinklers and that sort of thing. We want to just go cleaning supplies everywhere. I mentioned desolation, same location, but we could have a snow blower with different. Clear the area out. Not a whole lot, I think. I forget the square footage, it's small, pretty small.
So what are you looking for from the committee on this item?
What we're basically looking for is a commitment on, as was mentioned, a percentage, agreement on the percentage split. And if we could do it within the parameters of the numbers that we have, that have been expressed here today, we can put together a contract within those parameters that say there'll be a reconciliation with a not to exceed number or something like that without further negotiations. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. You know, if we could, you know, have some flexibility in the range, not knowing where we're, you know, that's our projections based on your actuals. But, you know, nobody went in there and we didn't do a study or survey, but that was just sort of off the, you know, off the ledger of what we had. So it's a starting point, but it's certainly, I don't know, you know, it's not exact. So a range.
I would just feel uncomfortable if at the end of next year, you know, it was $35,000. You know, that it said, well, you agreed to 50% of whatever it was. So we need to have something.
Right.
And especially if you're controlling the costs, other than, you know, you're on the labor costs. So.
Well, why don't you, I mean, so you're at, I mean, as a suggestion, you're at 15 or so now in the actuals. I mean, what if you said not to exceed, you know, we said we add in the thing, came to 9. What if it was something in that, I don't know, 10 to 12 range, or not to exceed 12?
And that's where I was at my
Yeah,
end, that
that's-
we wouldn't exceed.
Like I said, I just need to have some sort of
Yeah,
a
I mean,
on my side, so that.
we're going to do the best to manage costs. I mean, we're certainly, knowing that we're 50%, we have it works well because we have a mutual interest in not, you know, blowing the bank here. So we're pretty cost conscious about that kind of thing. So I would say, you know, but just not having managed and known the space yet, I just want us to have a little bit of room.
Sure. That's why we're talking about it.
Okay, great.
Is there anybody against entering into an agreement for a range, no higher than 12,000?
That's acceptable to me.
Mark?
And we can
put
stick in,
language,
we can stick in an extraordinary circumstance
Correct.
arbitration provision.
right?
So
So
if
just
there's something
have,
extraordinary, you know, we have a, you know, oil blockage or something like that, you know, you do a force majeure type thing in there, that if there's extraordinary circumstances, we can deal with it.
does that give you a sense of comfort?
Yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, that's a great point. You know, we see it as a partnership. You know, you all have been very supportive of this partnership so far. We see it the same way. We're going to be here for the long term, and we're going to do right by it. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, we can come back in a year and review the actuals with the committee if you want, and talk about next steps, where we came out. We're more than happy. We're fully transparent with this, so I see no problem.
I'm looking for direction, and I got it.
Jenny?
I'm fine. The only thing that I wanted to mention, what David mentioned earlier, is that I just want to ensure that the language in all of the contracts that we have with Springbrook refer to shared public space,
Mhm.
that be the walkway and the elevator for shared. I want it to make sure that type of language is in there to satisfy New York State.
And you don't care if we call it shared public space?
Makes a lot of sense. That's what it is. So,
Yeah, that's, I was hoping you.
works very well for me.
Sean, Seth, thank you very much for coming tonight, sort of, virtually.
Thank you all. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Greg, we'll move on to item,
Does anybody need me for anything else? Otherwise, I can blow it out.
do we need you for I? No, I guess we don't need you for I.
I don't need you.
Dinner time.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot.
Greg, wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, so this is actually water treatment plant, drinking water, potable water treatment plant improvements project. We've been planning for a while. We have an opportunity now to apply for grant funding through the Water Infrastructure Improvements Act. In conjunction with that grant application, we'll be submitting an application for potentially a low, no interest loan through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Both of those grant loan programs are administered by EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation. Source of funding as the wastewater plant upgrade that we're currently just about to finish. Right now, we're looking at a total project cost estimated at $5,650,000.
That was, that's something I should.
This would entail upgrades to the existing plant, replacing equipment, concrete repairs, that sort of thing, not extending capacity for production of drinking water or changing the way we're treating things, but just upgrading equipment and outdated one infrastructure. The grant is up to $3 million or 60% of the projects, with a total project cap of $5 million. So we would be able to get $3 million worth of grant funding through this, and the city would potentially be to take out a loan or bond for 2.65.
Right, and I think Jenny talked about this. This would probably be a 30-year.
It would probably be a 30-year, but I would have to look at the terms of the actual EFC grant.
Right.
They're up to
Would-
30.
Pardon me?
They're up to
Up to 30, yeah.
It's about the life cycle of the apparatus, right? And then it's based on. Yeah. And what would that be projected annually though, our costs on a 30-year?
Well, it would depend on if it was a 0% loan, it would, or if they give us low interest, that usually is between 0 and 2. So it would really depend on the interest rate that we get.
Right.
But say it was, let me just do some quick math here. And this is at a 0%.
Well, that's 230.
So that would be about $87,000 a year with no interest. But, you know, let me calculate something at 2% interest, and I can bring that back to you. And we'll incorporate this into a presentation for you through Waterworth, just so you know, which will be coming up in November. And we'll have this project in those numbers.
Okay. So, and what's changed from 2 weeks ago?
So what we'd like to move on to the November 2nd council agenda is the seeker determination, which in this case would be a type 2. We've written that up, the resolution prepared. That would be on the agenda. We want to make sure we brought that to the committee. We probably would not. I don't think we would be coming back to the committee with this project with a future council meeting. I think probably the 16th. It would have to be the 16th of November. We would go with the authorizing resolution to apply, the authorizing resolution for the bond. And I believe we have the whole council agreement.
And the bond.
More motions on that meeting, just to.
And the bond council agreement.
And the bond council agreement.
Right. So for tonight's purposes, we're looking at approval of this project because of the seeker. Okay. Is anybody disagreeing? Abstaining? Yeah. So moved. Topic C, the CDBG grant for social eats.
Sure. So, we did the public hearing. We've actually done 2 now for social eats. We didn't have any comments, so we didn't have anybody attend either one, I don't think. So now we can move ahead with the authorizing resolution to be able to submit the application. So Social Eats project is the cafe that's being built out at the end of city limits. They're going to be doing Basically, it's gonna be a public benefit corporation where their profits will be donated back into community nonprofits and events and things going on in the city. The application is going to the Community Development Block Grant Program for a small business program, and we're applying for $100,000. And the funds are gonna be used for equipment purchases, and maybe some working capital, but mostly equipment. And they're targeted to create up to 4 full-time jobs for that. So tonight I'm looking for first the authorization to apply, to move that on to council so we can get that in place. And then also a seeker type 2 resolution, which means because it's equipment purchases, we don't have to do any further environmental review.
So I was just a little confused because I thought we had already approved and the council approved an application.
No, not for this one. We did one for micro enterprise. We had talked about doing this, but then we had to back up because Gary wanted to do a second public hearing specifically for this. So that's what we did. Was it the last council meeting?
Correct.
So now we can go ahead with the authorization to actually apply.
Okay.
We have actually submitted the pre-app. We've been invited into the application. So if you guys are good with that at council, then we can submit the first week in November. And the application will be reviewed by the state in the December meeting.
Right, again, there's no cost to the city, we just have to oversee this. You're
No cost.
Administrating it, you're making sure that your costs are included, correct?
Yeah, so the budget in the budget breakdown is, we're asking for, hold on a second, out of the 100,000, we're asking for $10,000 for the city's cost to administer it and do the program delivery cost. So it'll be 90 to the social eats and 10,000 to us.
10% is a normal administrative fee unless you large project, right, and then you negotiate down.
Yeah, the state has limits as to what we can apply for admin, so we're within those limits, and that's a pretty good amount to cover my costs. That's fine.
Is there any objections or concerns? Anybody's good with it? Okay, so move.
Thank you.
The camera van. This thing's becoming famous before it's even gotten there.
It's been around since the 70s. We'll talk about it some more. So you may recall July 2021 reconsiderations of the budget we approved purchasing a new camera van and camera system. This camera system is for inspecting sewer pipe. We've got a bid. We'd like to recommend the award to Robert Green Auto and Truck for $45,316.89. That is for the van, not inclusive of the camera or the upfitting, which will be required to outfit the van to accept the camera system. There was one other bid. This was a mini bid, as we call it, the purchasing department did. One other bid was for 46,000 and change. So they're, it's a site grouping. The prices we're going to get certainly, and we'd like to recommend going forward with that at the next council meeting. The camera equipment itself, I think our estimate is, their quote is $69,529. That's on a cooperative purchasing contract, so we don't need to do a separate competitive bid for that. It's already been competitively bid. We would piggyback on that bid and purchase that. And then we would wait to do a smaller bid for the van outfit once we have the van for near getting to that point. So the total estimated cost for this project van is $142,121.64.
Yeah. So I got 45 for the van, I got 70 for the camera. What was the last part?
$26,500 for the van outfitting.
So
So what was the grant total you
142, 121.64. So we had talked originally about $125,000 for this. And we had also approved, the council approved 25,000 for Pony Farm Road sewer lift station generator project. So what we're proposing to, which this is the highest priority we have, the camera van is to use that 25 with the 125, giving us a budget of 150,000 to take care of this, the Pony Farm Road generator, which just has to be pushed off to a future budget year.
How many years do you think you're gonna? What's the average projection of life cycle on this, 142,000?
Well, I think the camera system, I would guess 10 years on the camera system itself. The van, because obviously this isn't a high usage, ton of mileage, it's not something we use to plow snow. Hopefully we'll be able to keep that for 15 plus years. Obviously, we had one around since the 70s, but I would be comfortable saying 50.
76,000. Good take, all right. Thoughts from the committee? Mark, you're awfully quiet over there.
I'm trying to recall the conversation, Greg, about the usage of the van in terms of identifying problems and I mean, basically, we're identifying problem areas and it helps with planning, for long-term planning. So I mean, I'm trying to understand what cost savings might be here as a result of this.
So for comparison's sake, if we were to hire a company to come camera lines, it's usually $2 per foot. Depending on the length of the project, if it's less than a day, it might cost more than that, but a full day's work, $2 per foot. Let's say they did 1,000 linear feet of sewer main, that would be $2,000 for that cost. We have 50 some miles of sewer main, I think, in the city, and that's not including storm sewer, which obviously this can inspect any pipe in storm sewer, it's another 40 some miles. So, being able to do this in-house certainly saves us money. As opposed to doing it outside. The fan itself will be part of the outfitting it's not just for sewer camera work, it can be used for other purposes as well. We can have other tools and materials on there to do a meter change out, that sort of thing. It can be multi-purpose. So it's not just going to sit in the garage and will be used for sewer camera work, but that's obviously the primary intent of it.
Scott?
How often do we use companies now?
Fairly often when this is down, we're not available. I don't know off the top of my head, I can't remember how much we spent this year on that. But I do know that the local contractor that we use for this is getting out of the business of inspecting large diameter sewer mains. So either another contractor from elsewhere might be a little more expensive based on past experience. And not as readily available, of course, we have an issue with inspect something right away.
We just entered into a contract with the town of Oneonta, right?
Or,
Water, first for sewer, right?
well, for
For
our,
30 years?
well, we're working on that.
You're working on it?
Yes, we're finalizing it now and it will be probably brought to council maybe next time.
Probably up to. So that is for our treatment of their.
The treatment of the product, right? What do you figure in when you're looking at the maintenance cost of our wastewater infrastructure? I mean, is this, like, these costs are projected inside?
And as far as the contract with the town,
Well, yeah.
so the town contract, the way that's structured is basically we're capturing the actual costs of the wastewater treatment, what it costs us to treat the wastewater. We measure the flow that's coming through each of the meter pits from town to the city system. And we measure through sampling and testing the wastewater characteristics. And there's a formula that determines how much they pay each year for operation and maintenance. And there's also a reserve capacity formula based on the amount of capacity at the plant they have reserved, both in terms of flow and in terms of the characteristics of the wastewater. Something like this, like the camera van, we do have a formula in our calculation for maintenance of shared interceptor sewer lines. So a sewer pipe that's carrying both city wastewater and town wastewater, a portion of those costs related to specifically maintaining those pipes could be shared between are paid by the town. And in the past, that hasn't been billed by the city. There really isn't that much operation and maintenance going into those large diameter pipes, but that's something we've separated out with the track in the future. This particular equipment, I think if we were to do a job on one of those pipes, we could potentially track the specific amount of time you spent on it and come up with using the FEMA equipment rental rate, come up with a billable amount and transfer the funds to, budget the funds in that particular code. Long-winded answer is that's not gonna recoup the very much of the costs from the town on this particular. Most part are, of the, I think it's 40-some, 50-some miles of sewer main, that's mostly all city.
I mean, when we're at 50 miles, obviously outsourcing this doesn't make sense.
Not if you want to do the volume or the linear footage of inspection that we should be doing on an annual basis to keep up with those things. What we're trying to do.
Another question, different direction. We have that grant, we're gonna get the grant to explore the geothermal downtown. Thinking further down the road, and clearly there's a lot of steps before we get there, could this be used in terms of work in conjunction with that, inspecting that, or working with that system, or?
Probably not. That system in concept would be a pressurized system similar to our water mains.
Right.
Yeah, probably not, because in that case, if you have a leak, you're going to be using like acoustic technology to find it similar to what we do with our water mains, where you can listen for a higher frequency noise that will be caused by a leak in the pipe, or you might see the leak coming out of the ground at that point. These are more gravity sewer, you're not going to know there's an issue unless you inspect it or if there's a sinkhole that develops because the pipe is collapsed and backup. That's why it's more of a proactive approach to find issues structurally with the main, it's a gravity sewer, or also defined infiltration and flow. One of the things you'll see in the next, years, decades, is New York State DEC increasing the regulations or tightening the regulations on whether storm sewer or sensor sewer overflows and bypass events. So when we experience a heavy rainfall and the wastewater plant, which is taking water from the sewer system, that sewer system has roof leaders tied into it, it has manholes that leak, and it has groundwater seeping into the sewer mains that increases our flow temporarily at the plant. At some point, we can't handle it anymore and it has to bypass a portion of that around. It's going to become more tightly regulated as to when those can happen. And at some point, I imagine that they're not going to be permitted anymore, which means that we'll be in violation when that happens, which means that, hopefully at that point we'll be eligible for more funding to address things like infiltration and flow. But the way that you address those issues is by proactively going out and inspecting and finding where the issues are, and prioritizing kind of spend money to eliminate the stormwater from coming into the sewer. So I think by, again, having this piece of equipment to work our way through a system-wide inspection is more of a proactive approach than waiting for a consent order or something, but we have to contract someone else to inspect it all at once. Judy, feel free to jump in if you have any history with I&I studies and the work that goes into them.
Yeah, you pretty much hit it. You to be ready for funding that comes down the pipe, you need to have that in place and prioritized and, identify the issues and the priorities and then you're in good shape for funding.
Well, I'll throw my thoughts out here. Well, it's a tough pill to take at 42. I do appreciate planning from aspect of it and proactive planning, and would hope that this might kind of help us in the long run, either kind of get into grants or opportunities, as well as perhaps see problems before they become bigger problems. So I'm supportive of it, but yeah, it's a tough one because of the volume of that, the price of that.
Just as a reminder, this camera van is also being shared between general water and sewer funds, so not one fund is taking the whole hit.
Right. 3 ways, right?
Well, it's gonna be a little bit more on the sewer side than the water in general.
And for me, I don't know what the camera system looks like, so it must be large if you need an entire van to house this.
Yeah, so
Because I would assume that if you could put it on another piece of apparatus that we have, like, for me, I was just thinking of, didn't we buy a vehicle for codes, for lawn mowing and for snow plowing? And
if it's a pickup truck, so this had, you would sit in the back of the van, there's someone there, there's a computer, there's a screen, a monitor with, computer equipment. So they're monitoring and have a desk and there's software that's involved, so it's, especially if there's inclement weather, if it's something where you kind of need a cover to do that aspect of it. And then out the back, there's a window or a door, you can see what's going on, it's just set up, so it's camera is probably something like this big or so. It's a robot on wheels, there's different sets of wheels depending on the size of the pipe that you're gonna use, so it's not huge, but it's not.
so it's permanently mounted.
It's not permanent, you would pull it out and set it in the holder, put just a floor down there, but there's a reel for the cable that goes with it, and you pull it back with it, and it sends a signal. That would be in the truck, but
You're surprisingly quiet too.
I hate spending money.
Sean, where you
I am in principle supporting it. I think the rationale is there. And going with that, we're trying to figure out an alternative that's somewhat cheaper.
Right.
But probably the savings would not really amount to a real savings because of the additional work that would be required. You have an actual picture of what a caravan looks like, Gary? Like it's a van, it's not like
yeah.
like your big utility truck with a big enclosed thing on the back, right?
See if I have a picture of the one.
Looks like mini animals. Possible grant opportunity, it's kind of.
Yes, we do grants, we did apply for a grant to fund part of this, and some other building was unsuccessful.
Well, I was thinking like your grants down the road.
I think we're in concept here, of moving this item up to full council for review. Moving on to the local community development grant program update. Is this the cool grant are we talking about?
Yes. Did everybody have a chance to read the draft?
I did, I had a couple of questions.
Okay,
Does anybody else want to go first? I had, first question was under financial assistance. Who is going to be on the pool review committee and how many are going to be on there?
well, we thought that would be a mayoral appointment, and I'm assuming that you would probably pick at least 5.
Usually there's 5 on those.
And says that this is a reimbursement program. How far back are you going?
Oh, no, we're not going back retroactively. What it would be is that the applicant would pay and then submit their invoices to us and we would reimburse them.
There'd be like a grant agreement with them, like an award and then an agreement. And then they would be given a date that they could start spending the money. They couldn't spend the money. We wouldn't reimburse anything prior to the award.
So we're looking at 2022. These are new ideas moving forward. Somebody comes to the pool committee and they hash it out.
They show that once they get the award and we have a grant agreement with them, then they can spend the money. And then they have to show us the invoices and the paid receipts.
Right. But is it, and if it's here, I apologize that I missed it. Is this a first come, first serve, or you have to have your submittal by the end of the second quarter, whatever year? And just trying to understand this.
You didn't miss it, Len. We didn't get into that minute of detail, and because this was just our rough draft of the idea. We were thinking about having rounds, like we would have so many application periods per year, maybe it's twice a year. And then the number of applications that come in, the committee would review and decide which ones they thought was the most beneficial to the community. We just haven't quite gotten into those. We were looking for your feedback and, as far as how you would like it administered. We would like to not award all the money at once, to spread it out over a period of time, to see how popular the program is and see how we can replenish it with old program income money coming in. That's kind of what we were thinking.
Because that was my next question, is how are we refunding this? Because it says funded by the pre-2000 HUD Community Development Program income. So that you said you found $100,000, right? So moving forward in 22, 23, 24, how are we gonna fund this?
It would again come from the old, we still have outstanding loans from the old, the pre-2001 loans. So as we get those payments coming in, we could replenish it, or not all of it, maybe just a portion of it. Say we get $25,000 worth of payments and we only want to put $15,000 into the cool grant, that's fine. And so it would just be a matter of until all of the funds recycle back to us. And then once the funds were gone, the program would be gone. Because those loan payments are not going to last forever. We do still have a good dollar on the book for example, we have a couple of loans outstanding that when the building sells, then they need to repay us back what we granted them way back in the 70s or 80s. But you just never know when that's going to happen. The only reason we have a good portion of it now is one of those did happen during 2021 and we were paid. So that's one reason why we got up to the $100,000 mark. So, so it's just a matter of cash flow, and say the program lasts 5 years, it lasts 5 years. If it lasts 7, it lasts 7. It just depends on the cash flow coming in.
Because it seems like a good program. I would just hate to try to develop the culture for small businesses and organizations that know of it, and then we go dry. We end up being like the Dusty Creek.
Well, one thing about the pre-2000 or the post-2001 program income, which is on our New York State HUD loans, if we do not receive more than $35,000 a year in program income, we're allowed to keep it. Then it's turned into miscellaneous income, and then we could put those funds into this grant program. However, if we do earn over $35,000, if we earn $35,001, all $35,000 has to be paid back to the state. Knock on wood, so far, we have not had to do that, only because of the loan payments that we've been getting in on the timing and the amount. So we have other sources, but can I guarantee how long they're going to last? No,
Right.
But we can pace ourselves on how much we award.
Correct. That's ultimately what I'm trying to get here.
Yeah.
If we're starting with 100, let's not burn 50, 22.
Right. That's what we can pace ourselves. So if we want to say we only want to spend, 25,000, that's all we're going to spend. But again, the committee can figure that out depending on what type of applications they have. That also may be a deciding factor. So I think it will be based on what comes in front of us is the way I'm thinking of it.
Right. But if we believe in the program and we want it to last a long time, then we could set it up similar to the Appleball Fund, where you're only allowed to spend a certain percent every year with it, right?
Right, but the Appleball Fund itself has an endowment that earns interest. So all we're allowed to spend on the Appleball is actually the interest earned. This endowment would not be large enough to earn that type of income.
Any other questions?
No, I love it. That'd be cool.
Not wanting to move this up to full council.
See what happens.
I'm sorry.
This is just the first draft.
That was cool, yeah.
So I think for a first draft, I think we're good with this. You're just gonna keep fine tuning it.
Yeah, we'll fine tune it. We can, Judy and I can work on it together and we can submit it back and we'll bring it back to finance if you'd like, before we take it to council.
Thank you.
Any other, may I just ask, any other input or questions that you want to see in this program, or did you cover them all?
I think we covered them all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Stagger this out with the committee.
Yep.
About 1 or 2 projects and burn, I would want to burn more than 25% of it per year. We want to get some life out of this thing. What's next?
So do you want it coming back to committee again, or you want us to make those changes and go to council and get more,
I want to bring it back to the committee and
bring it back here?
Yeah.
Okay.
we're meeting every 2 weeks, so. Katie, you have a Class D water license stipend you want to talk about?
Correct.
Yeah. Rob Stevens, one of our water distribution maintenance mechanics. This is a position that works out in the streets, maintaining our water system as well as wastewater collection system. So he's one that like deal with that camera. He recently completed the training and obtained Class D operator certification. This is a certification that's issued by New York State Department of Health that someone with this Class D system or operate certification can operate the system that we have, which is a system over 1,000 individuals. This benefits the city, so what we're suggesting is awarding a stipend, an annual stipend. Can you refresh me the amount?
$1,000, which is similar to the stipend that every person in the city holding this license has.
Right, so we have a history of awarding the stipend to anyone who obtains the license, because the way it helps the city is that we have more knowledgeable, more, greater expertise in our workforce. The only DOH requirement is that whoever supervising the maintenance of such a system has this license. Not everybody has to have it, but this stuff license state, it's not part of their normal duties, but it's something additional and it does benefit the city. So we're recommending that he be awarded that stipend.
Any objections?
No.
That's been a long-term city employee, good to see. Who wants to take topic G?
Start that one. Fire captain hire, so we have a promotional list that was established, a civil service list with 3 reachable candidates out of 6 total on the list. Chief Knapp and personal director Becker and company have interviewed 3 of those, the 3 that are reachable. And based on Chief Knapp's recommendation and my review as well, I'm comfortable recommending the promotion of firefighter Kevin Sloon to captain. Kevin's been a firefighter with OFD for about 10 years now, since 2011. The position that he's filling is not a current, it's not due to retirement at this point, but there's been a temporary captain, Pete Barbera, has been filling this position since I think February of this year. He's intending to retire next year. He's not in line for the position, but we wanted to fill it permanently and move forward with his training. So Kevin would be, presuming he's approved by the council on Tuesday, he'd be going almost straight to first line supervisor training course, which is held in New York City. And I believe that starts the 1st or 2nd week in November, Brian. The 8th. So the timing has worked out well as far as when we got the civil service results back and we're able to conduct interviews and come forward with a recommendation that he'll be able to go straight to the school that's going to help train him to take on the new position. And the starting salary is $62,960.
No questions? With that, up to full council. Who wants to take topic H?
Part-time wage scale modification. We have a candidate for a senior wastewater treatment plant operator, or a part-time senior wastewater treatment plant operator. This individual would work approximately 20 hours per week, providing some of our younger, less experienced operators training and guidance, and also supplementing weekend shifts and the other shifts that be necessary. We had a recent retirement, and really this is an opportunity to come around and experience wastewater or water operators for that matter. So keeping this individual's expertise in the mix is definitely a win for wastewater. So we would need to establish this position as a pay rate on a part-time scale, which it currently is not. We'd be recommending a range of $24 to $26 per hour, which is commensurate as compared to the full-time rate. Something will be starting in November, as far as its work with us.
So he's with us now, full-time,
Retiring.
he's retired, we're bringing him back. So then he's capped at how much he can gross per year.
$35,000.
Right.
This is ours. At the same time, we did discuss that we also established a senior water treatment plant operator. It's about the same rate, we're having to fill out this now, just anticipation of that possibly. Some other things.
So is there knowledge that this employee has that we need to get transferred over to someone else?
Yeah, as he's retiring, he filled that position through the civil search process, presumably that could be a new, some new wastewater world, maybe somebody who has some experience, may not. And our current operators at the plant, aside from our chief operator, are relatively experienced, so they've been here for a few years, so I think they still stand to gain some experience.
This is a budgeted item, or are we creating something new?
We have room in our budget. We have included process for it. Would require a transfer, I believe, for a budget amendment for 20. Apart from the salary difference, the gap.
We just may need to transfer between codes, but we have to fund it.
For 2022.
But we've never had,
We have not, in my time, had a part-time wastewater treatment operator. I'm not sure if that was ever the case.
No,
do we do this as an interim, or is this going to be a permanent position? I understand the employee can come and go, but how are you viewing, are you and Katie viewing this in the employee structures that you guys have been working on?
And I think obviously every year we do a process. We have a decision point as to whether to do the money for such a position or not. So I think we would evaluate on annually whether or not it's necessary to keep some like our operators, current customer experience operators, see if we would need to operate. That's necessarily be something we need to have. Directions like that, money elsewhere. I can't say for certain how long it would consider a year-round part-time position. Foreseeable future, setting. The opportunity for the council to. Possibly.
You guys good? Can we do J, K, and L before we go to I? Just let me do J real quick, I'll do J. J, to the committee members, did everybody read the paperwork that was provided? We're basically getting $20,000 as a settlement. Is there any objection to receiving $20,000 from the ISA settlement? L, which is the local intel quality of life tool. I don't know if you guys got an opportunity to, Mark and I were last time, we had a chance to play around with the tool. But it adds on to what Intel's already doing for us for economic development. My 2 cents, I thought it was well worth investment. Pretty intuitive tool that will be helpful. It's user friendly. That's what I liked about it initially, was it was user friendly. I'm assuming you're good with the cost.
Can you fill me in? I don't know what this is.
So this is a software tool that's going to be added on to the economic development that we already have for the city.
What is the cost?
Sorry,
What is the cost?
I'm not raising this one. Jen?
Mayor,
Oh, okay. So Jenny, I looked this up through planning, sorry. I thought you guys knew about this. This is a rare turn of
We
events.
haven't got it for us.
Oh, a 3-year contract was $1,982 per year, and a 1-year contract was $2,532 per year.
Mayor sent an email to the council. Staff.
He may have copied me and I just didn't see it. I apologize if I missed it.
That's okay. It's yeah, it's what Wednesday, I believe. I don't know what we're paying now for the local Excel.
We get the first year free, and then it's a 2-year contract. I forgot what the back year was. I really.
This is from the website.
Correct. For economic development.
Okay, we'll chat, Kim.
2,900 for the second year.
Okay.
I'll need to verify if we have that in the 2022 on there.
So Gary, I shoot room for them.
Gary asked me to TDE at the email the council when I said beyond. Well, email me anyway, not, you don't need to.
Mark, do you have that email in front of you? Can you send it to John and Scott?
You got it, you found it, think.
May I add you to my email list?
Pardon me?
May I add you to my email list?
No, that's okay. I'm sure the mayor copied me. I probably just missed the email. I'll find it.
Anyone?
I'm sure it's wonderful. I just want to make sure I accounted for it in the 2022 budget.
Yeah.
And Len, I raised my question to planning, that's the only question I had. We're just trying to understand what kind of activity this is having with other uses, other areas.
So Mark's question was regarding the performance standards is what you'd like to know. What's their markers? How do we know that it's actually gaining traction?
Yeah,
If I understood you correctly.
as well, right, they've rolled this out with other municipalities, what's been the rate of hits on this or whatever the marker is, right?
This might be, could this be something that we could share with the county since it's the same? Right, Carrie, aren't they the same company that with the county doing theirs? So there might be a possibility that we could share this with the county. We have some shared services. On the cost, maybe? You guys want to, was that a rush on that to do this one tonight? Is that something that maybe we could call the county? Or
I could certainly, I'll be speaking to the new county administrator about that.
not? I mean,
If you want.
we,
I don't know anything about the program, just, I just saw the email that the mayor forwarded.
yeah,
I think we should, give you talk to it.
don't you guys? Talk with the county, see if we can share services on this one. If not, then if we could match up with a 2-year contract, because you know what we're trying to do is have some consistency in the contract. Because this one is 3 years or 1 year to the special deal that they're giving us. Just something that maybe we talk to them and say, hey, we're in a 2-year agreement with you. Would you give us the number for the 3-year cost per year if we match this up? So then we can renew the contract if need be at the same time.
We look at each contract depending on what the situation is. Quite often we'll only go with a 1 year depending on our cash flow and things like that. That's ever since really 2020 with COVID, we've been shortening them only because of revenues. But when, for example, on the Zoll heart monitor for the fire department, we went with a 3-year warranty because it was such a cost savings to do that. So we just look at each one individually to see what is the best approach for us, and also if we've got the cash flow at the time to handle it.
Right, I'm not suggesting that we line up all our contracts ending at the same time, but I'm just saying, we've already entered into a contract with this company for 2 years for the existing software. Now they're offering us an add-on. To me, it only makes sense to have that end at the same time that the existing contracts can end, whereas they're offering us a special deal. If we go 3 years, it's this number. We do a 1-year deal that's a little bit higher. The cost for this additional software.
Oh, okay. Let me
So
study
if
the
you guys
details
could
of it.
talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about this.
if that's
figure it out,
okay.
that'd be good.
Yeah, I'm a little in the dark, so
Sorry.
I can't talk.
Well, actually, it's not my fault, so I
intelligently.
apologize. Okay, so that'll be tabled, I guess, until our next meeting. And then, Greg, if you just want to give us kind of an overview of what you got here.
Sure, I mean, it's just this is something that we're talking about, city-owned properties, this is just a map overview, obviously, it's a high level. Zoomed out view of the city, showing highlighted city-owned properties. We'll have to give you a table which shows the address, tax map ID, parcel size, assessed value, all the information that's readily available on the county tax map website. Consolidate into a table and give to you. So you have a little bit more context, but this just gives you an idea of where these properties are. You see that many of them are very small.
Right.
Not much else to be discussed at this point, I don't think, but we can come back with more.
Okay. Well, thank you for our GIS employee do this for us.
Yeah, our engineering aid, our summer intern next week. So we can zoom in on certain areas, and show them better.
Right. So, what we own Web Island though?
The portion that's highlighted, the other portions of New Island,
New
oh,
Island.
New Island or what Island?
New Island, sorry, I was.
That's actually most of that, as you see, is not highlighted, it is owned by New York State DOT. It's, right now.
Okay.
If you recall, a few years back, the old railroad bridge that's on their property.
Right.
They're right, the DOT were the ones that approached the city, said we needed to close that down.
Right.
Because it had been inspected. So that's what we rerouted around.
Okay. I actually didn't know that we owned this rural vacant way over here. Okay. Going back up to I. Yes, sir.
I'll second that motion.
And this is based on why we're going to the executive session is based on what?
Confidential personnel information to include protected medical information.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
We need to have it noted. So Carrie, I don't know, since this is something new, how you're going to block it.
I couldn't hear you.
I said, it's been a while, so it's been a executive session.
Thank you for that.
I believe we've completed all of the items on our agenda for tonight.
We have one other, just one informational item. We recently received proposed one-year health insurance plan extension from Excel. And we're thinking that we'd like to, we didn't get on the agenda in time tonight, but we'd like to move that forward to the council meeting on Tuesday. We're still finalizing some of the details, but right now we're looking at a 7.1% increase to medical premiums for active employees and non-Medicare eligible retirees. Included in that increase is 3.5% of fees, state federal taxes, that sort of thing, it's non-negotiable. 7.1% for medical premiums for active employees and non-medical Medicare eligible employees.
So that's considerably better than the 19% forecast, correct?
We started at 21, actually, and then it went,
21.
and then 19, and then 18, and then. Yeah.
Okay.
We did have a tough year with our plan utilization, which is the contributing factor to the increase. And however, given the experience we had this year, the plan utilization, I mean, it's only about 3.5%. I mean, it's not what we hoped for, certainly, but I think it's about the best we will do.
Well, in 2020, I think you had negotiated a deal before we went into COVID, right? So we had a good year there. Was that 2%? You guys had negotiated somewhere around that ballpark. It was low. I remember it being low.
Yes.
And then 2021 was flatline. They flatlined us. So we knew that at some point that they were going to do a clawback, if you will. We're going to get some of that money back. So typically we'd be 2%, 3% on insurance, correct? And so we're looking at 7 to make up for basically 3 years.
In addition to that, the Medicare eligible plan is a 2.5% increase. And it's not the CSCI police and fire dental plan, it's a 1.3% increase. Decrease, thank you.
Sorry, I did not make that clear.
Just decrease right there.
Couldn't read your type.
Couldn't read my. That's my excuse. The CSCA dental plan is already in place and has been extended earlier this year.
I guess I just want to kind of recap with Mark here. One, thank you for sending Larry Malone's white paper onto the finance. I briefed it, and then actually the next night ran into Larry at a local restaurant. We briefly talked about it. I talked about this with John. It's a great paper. It would bring, a well-needed revenue stream into the city of Oneonta. I'm wondering if we can do this at a local law, local ordinance level. That's kind of where I'm at with this. And I approached the county to see if the occupancy law that the county works under could be applied to this. So I'm waiting back from the county to see what their answer is on that. That's what I have for that one right now. I'm hoping that we're all kind of individually looking at that 9 items on the list, and Greg did what we were asking him of, looking at vacant property. I guess from your perspective, what else did you need me as the chair to do to continue steering this conversation? Because I don't want to dictate it. I just want to be able to kind of make sure that we keep a list of what items we're working on. That's all. I don't want us to kind of go all over the place, just kind of stick with it.
Then if I could jump in, Larry did offer to come speak to this committee if we'd like him to, so.
He did, and I thank you for raising that because I forgot to talk about that. So if you guys want Larry to come before us, he said he would. And just kind of give us a background on where he was with that, what's changed since he wrote the paper. Maybe some of his.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice for everybody to hear it. I mean, Greg's new into his position, it would be nice for him to hear it.
Is that something we want to do for the next finance meeting? See, do you mind being the
Oh, absolutely.
liaison? Just asking Larry if he would come to the next finance meeting, and we'll put him on the agenda,
One,
unless you're anticipating a long list. The next items? I'm not sure, so.
just a quick question. There are two things. One is, as I understood it, it was Senator Stewart who was able to get the idea of some compensation, some support. And you mentioned something else, and that's a local ordinance. And if you could talk a little bit about what your thoughts were with that.
So I was
One thing
wondering
is-
if we could do it with occupancy, since the county already has occupancy laws, that's how they go after bed and breakfasts and hotels, that's how tourism is paid for in Osceola County. So I'm wondering if we partnered with them for the student population who do not reside here year round, if we can apply that. So I just was leaning towards the county to see if that's something that we can fall under their own county law. If that's the case, is that something that we can adapt at our local level? I don't know, just starting to ask the questions. Because
It's good to ask, the question. I'm thinking a little bit about, we have a certain portion of students who live on campus.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that the city trying to impose a tax on students that is similar to a bed and breakfast tax or hotel tax is, that's.
Right, if it's gonna work or not. So you're right, John, we're asking the question, see where we're gonna go with it.
And the other
Because
is
the other
whether
one
we have
took us-
any influence over the state
Right, 'cause that's what I was gonna say.
to obey one of our laws because we're taxing them.
Right.
And I don't believe we'll be able to tax, we've asked David Merzig about it. I think it's a wonderful idea to see if we can get another member of the state legislature to bring this up and champion this. And as I understood, there was cooperation between not only Stewart, but other campuses that were getting some money.
Cortland was one of them.
Have we reached out to the colleges yet to see if they could put on a little bit of money for the tuition to help Forest Services?
Have not.
So
So
that
that
would
could
be,
be another idea.
that would be an idea to go. I think Hartwick might be in a different position in terms of responsiveness to that. I don't think anyone in the state, you tell me more, is going to be able to do an independent negotiation with the city of Oneonta. Because I don't know that even the president of the state university has the ability to say, I think I'll do this. It's possible.
Right, and when Larry gives us the background information, that might explain why they ended up creating legislation in the Assembly and the Senate, which I believe both failed, both houses. So I think that would just give us a different perspective of how that was moved forward. So I was just looking at another avenue. I mean, if that boulder had been pushed up and it stopped there, then is there another way around this? Scott brings up
Did
an idea.
anything come out of Larry's proposals or,
That's how Stewart got that original 250, I think it was.
Yeah, Cortland and Oneonta were paid for 2 years, I believe, and then after that it died off. 3 years? 3 years, and then it died off.
okay,
It was like the Dusty Creek.
Hmm.
It was like the Dusty Creek. The joke fails here, Mark, because they weren't in planning. Well, Scott was.
I'm sticking with that.
The first and the second time, it's a little
Yeah,
old and dry.
yeah.
That's all.
Nice.
That was a bit dusty.
All right, so I guess what I'll do is I'll create that list again. You're gonna ask Larry to come, if he can, great. If he needs to go to the next one, then we'll do it at the next one.
Can I make a suggestion? To also invite Dave Merzig, if Larry's going to present, to give the legal aspect, because I have been told in the past that what Larry's proposing is not legal without state legislation. So,
Yeah.
Right, that's why I went to the assembly and
Yeah.
stuff.
right, so I think we need Dave Merzig here also, to inform us of what we can legally do. I also don't think, from what I've been told in the past, that we can go to SUNY or the SUNY Chancellor's Office to have them charge their students so we can get money. I think
Yeah.
it all has to be done through the state legislation.
Sure.
I think we're just talking. I'm not sure that
Nothing's getting done.
we have to bring the attorney in yet. We're just kicking around ideas.
Well, I just thought you might want his input to know if it's a valid idea.
Right.
I'd agree with that. I think we need to have a way to put some boundaries on what we're thinking about rather than live in a false hope. If you do something that would, Dave could advise us of what our limits are in terms of invading state property. And trying to invoke a local ordinance that would, or even just on our knees request. That we could,
We'll send you up there for that one, Jeff. On your knees request.
I could go up with a baseball bat. They're coming down with baseball.
Well, why don't we, I hear what you're saying, why don't we just, for the presentation of Larry, we'll hear what he presents and see what comes of it. You're absolutely right, we probably should get at some point down the road, Dave, his advice on it. But in the meantime, maybe Scott could ask around campus to see what the possibility would be. And then ultimately, we should be contacting other college communities. There should be 62 or 64 other communities that are in the same or similar circumstance as Oneonta.
But again, that's one possibility I think we need to keep on exploring, as you suggested, the other list of revenue ideas that we can develop.
I agree with that.
Because it wasn't like curbside. It was one of them.
Yeah, we had
And
9.
pay, I think it was a pay in city versus out of city. I think it's easier to discuss those ideas when we have a smaller agenda.
Good. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.